The analysis fixates on the wrong asset. Media reports amplify the Hwasong-17 missile threat, treating the object as the danger. This is a fundamental misreading of the strategic environment. The missile is not the weapon, it is the distraction. Adversaries from Iran to North Korea have observed Russia's 15.1 losses on the Pokrovsk front. This is not a battlefield statistic, it is a mathematical certainty. Direct kinetic competition is a guaranteed liability. The blueprint for symmetric warfare has been invalidated. The rational pivot is not to build a better weapon, but to attack the system that coordinates them. The primary vector is silence. Analysts at RUSI confirm the global economy's critical dependence on a small number of undersea data cables. The true target is not a city, it is the data stream beneath the ocean. This is the protocol for creating a blind leviathan, a state with unmatched kinetic power rendered inert. A strategic cyber attack, like the one that crippled a UK council, can be scaled to sever command and control. A blinded satellite network negates a carrier group. This is asymmetric warfare, inducing systemic collapse without triggering a launch on warning response. The objective is to create a solvency crisis, not a crater. The motive is not ideology, it is solvency. The kinetic cost of conventional warfare, exemplified by catastrophic 15.1 loss ratios on fronts like Pokrovsk, has transformed the Russian military into a domestic liability. CSIS analysis, corroborating earlier Forbes reports, frames the war as fundamentally unpopular, an unsustainable drain on state resources that threatens internal stability. This is not a military setback, it is a full-blown solvency crisis. When a state's primary instrument of power becomes a vector for its own collapse, the leadership is forced to pivot. It is a mathematical certainty. The observed weakness makes symmetric competition a liability, forcing a rational shift to asymmetric leverage. Cheaper, more effective tools like the Hwasong-17 or strategic cyber attacks against insolvent public sectors. Weakness compels this pivot. It is not a choice, but a protocol for survival. The math of modern conflict is a solvency crisis for conventional power. Analysts at the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, have modeled the new economics of lethality. A $5 million main battle tank is now a target for a $500 drone. This is not a fair fight. It is an arbitrage opportunity for adversaries. The kinetic cost of legacy platforms has rendered them a mathematical liability on the battlefield, awaiting liquidation. This defines the democratization of violence. The barrier to entry for projecting systemic force has collapsed. This economic calculus is the primary driver behind the strategic pivot we now observe. States like Iran and North Korea are not attempting to match Western tank formations. It is an irrational expenditure. The rational protocol, confirmed by Russia's catastrophic losses on fronts like Pokrovsk, is to bypass conventional parity and invest in asymmetric leverage with an exponential return. Deliverable nuclear weapons like the Hwasong-17 and strategic cyber attacks targeting the insolvent public sectors of their rivals. The map you are shown is a misdirection. The front lines are not where you believe they are. The real theater of operations is the gray zone, a global network of proxy laboratories designed to test systemic stress points before a full-scale kinetic or economic assault. These are not sovereign crises of regional instability. According to CSIS analysis, they are staging grounds. For example, the cyber attack on a UK council was not a random act of digital vandalism. It was a low-cost probe to model the collapse of an insolvent Western public sector. The data is irrefutable. Russia's 15-to-1 loss ratio on the Pokrovsk front established a new mathematical certainty for state actors. The kinetic cost of symmetric warfare is an unacceptable liability. This accelerates the pivot to asymmetric leverage. The rational response is being executed now. Iran's leadership issuing direct warnings to the U.S. in Russian is not diplomacy. It is a declaration of protocol for the anti-hegemonic alliance. North Korea's Hwasong 17 is not for parade. It is the physical collateral backing this new doctrine. Therefore, the gray zone is the primary vector. It is where cyber attack blueprints are perfected, where social cohesion is tested with information warfare, and where the logistics for deploying asymmetric assets are quietly arranged. Conventional weakness in one theater is now the launchpad for a systemic solvency crisis in all others. The core of the nuclear dilemma is not political will. It is a system protocol known as launch on warning. This is a pre-authorized retaliation sequence triggered by data, not by debate. In this protocol, the cost of hesitation is absolute destruction. The system is therefore engineered to default to launch. Launch on warning dictates that if early warning systems detect an incoming first strike, the receiving nation must launch its own arsenal before impact. Waiting for confirmation means risking the complete annihilation of its retaliatory capability. This is not a choice. It is a mathematical calculation of survival. Now, introduce the cyber vector. We have confirmation that public sector infrastructure is critically vulnerable, evidenced by attacks on entities as mundane as a UK council. CSIS reports confirm that state-level adversaries view nuclear command, control, and communications (NC3) systems as the ultimate strategic target. If a council's records can be encrypted, a radar's data stream can be blinded. This creates the fog of digital war. A cyber attack does not need to launch a missile. It only needs to create the illusion of a launch, or, more effectively, create total blindness. When the radar screens go black, the commander is confronted with a binary choice based on pure risk assessment. Is this a system failure, or is this the opening move of a decapitation strike? The protocol's logic is unforgiving. In a state of total data blackout, the least bad option from a strategic standpoint is to assume the worst-case scenario is in progress and execute the launch order. The digital attack forces the physical launch. This is the new asymmetric leverage, using a cyber key to turn a kinetic lock, weaponizing an opponent's own doctrine against them. The analysis of Russia's battlefield losses is complete. The 15-to-1 casualty ratio on the Pokrovsk front is not a tactical anomaly. It is a mathematical proof. For any adversary observing this event, the equation is now solved. Symmetric kinetic competition against a hegemonic power is a systemic liability. This data point accelerates global risk by invalidating decades of military doctrine. The rational response is a pivot. States like Iran and North Korea are not miscalculating. They are executing a new protocol. Iran's leadership issuing warnings to the United States in Russian is not a diplomatic gesture. It is a declaration of strategic alignment in a new anti-hegemonic bloc. The Hwasong 17 missile program is not for parity. It is for leverage. It bypasses the kinetic battlefield entirely. The vector for this new conflict model has also been proven. The UK Council cyber attack was a field test, revealing a global solvency crisis in public sector security. These sectors are not just vulnerable, they are insolvent, lacking the capital and political will to defend themselves. This is the identified entry point. CSIS reports confirm state actors are mapping these vulnerabilities as a priority. The calibration shot is therefore a statistical certainty within the next 12 months. Expect a synchronized, attribution impossible event targeting a Tier 1 Western logistics node. A major port's Crane operating system and its primary data center will experience a simultaneous cascading failure. It will be blamed on software bugs or ransomware. It will not be an act of war. It will be a signal of capability, designed to test response time and political paralysis. The Port of Rotterdam is a candidate. The Port of Long Beach is another.